welcome to the TitleTown Huddle on the gruelingtruth.net.
Welcome to the TitleTown Huddle at the gruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak. I am Joe Pritchard, and I have Aaron Zepnick here along with me to talk some football. Later on, we'll be hearing from CBS 58's Kevin Holden. But first of all, Aaron, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be back on.
All right. So there was quite a bit of news breaking over the course of the last week here. But first and foremost, let's talk about that final 53-man roster and a couple of big surprising cuts here.
Yeah, I think the Josh Sitton one sticks out at people the most, and I think Sam Barrington is another one, and the punting thing, going into your final preseason game. I mean, since last time we were on, I mean, Tim Mastay, Peter Mortel both let go, and they bring on a new punter, and came in and he kicked some balls pretty well, so that's good. But as far as the Josh Sitton thing, I understand it's a business, and I understand that. He's 30 years old, some minor back issues, but the durability's been there. 110 starts out of 112 games, pretty darn good for an interior lineman. I don't know if this is going to be the right move for the Packers. Time will tell. Hopefully Lane Taylor eats his Wheaties and he steps in and protects Aaron. That's a lot of money standing back there to keep upright. So let's hope that for the Packers' well-being, that Lane Taylor can step in and at least fill the shoes at a mediocre or better pace, because continuity is big with the offensive line. So that scares me.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly the news I was looking for last Saturday when it came out. Not expecting it at all, and then seeing it develop throughout the day over social media that, they might be trying to trade him. They're actually just going to cut him. They really caught me off guard. I did not see it coming at all here. Now, we know Thompson has his methods. He has his system here. But a lot of questions are being raised by the fact that Sitton was in his last season of this contract here, had not been negotiated with to extend that contract, and by cutting him now, the Packers don't save any or don't lose any dead money on the cap here. So you almost wonder why they didn't keep him throughout the season. But there seems to be a lot more to this than we can see on the surface here.
Yeah, there's got to be some, other locker room things, or who knows? It could be any one of a variety of things. I'd like to ask Kevin, when we get to interview him, if he knows of anything out there that's standing that the inside media knows that people aren't hearing. But Josh Sitton was a good Packer, and now he's a Bear, so I think that makes Packer fans even more cringeful that he's going to be in the ugly orange and navy blue. So
right, and then the first thing they always ask a player when they go to the Bears or the Vikings or even the Lions at this point is, did you do it to spite the Packers? And they always say no, but you always know in your heart that they mean yes.
Absolutely. I can't count how many players we've lost to our division rivals, or that eventually end up there.
Well, the nice thing about that, though, is that when they end up there, sometimes they do play well for a time, but they always end up being disappointments ultimately to the teams that pick them up. So we'll go ahead and move on from him for now, but we'll get back to that when we get Kevin Holden on a little bit later here. But the other surprising cut that we talked about before the show here was Sam Barrington. Kind of leaves the middle linebacking core a little bit empty, don't you think?
Yeah, and that tells me that they think a lot of Joe Thomas and Blake Martinez, and I hope they're right on that one as well. Barrington was the veteran, so to speak, but he really only had 8 starts in his career. He's not a very experienced guy, and reliability, I think, becomes the main issue there. And I love Sam. He came and spoke, like I said off air, came and spoke to my son's youth football team, and I think that he was up for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award and everything, off the field. He's a great guy, great character guy. Nothing but respect for Sam Barrington and what he's done, in the community. just can't get on the field and stay healthy. And at the end of the day, it's a business. And if you can't be relied on, other guys are taking your job, as it shows.
Right. I did confirm while we were still off air that Sam Barrington did sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's actually picked up on waivers, so he does have a home for the time being. John Dorsey, again, plucking a Packer cut, again, coming from the Packer organization. He knows what kind of things Townsend does here, what kind of players he looks for. So you're seeing teams like Seattle and Kansas City also look favorably at players that don't make the Packer roster for various reasons here. And that trend just continues.
I mean, smart GMs will look at successful teams and pluck, the guys that fit into their system. I think that's a good move for Kansas City, and I hope Sam has a really good rest of his career. I really do.
All right. Well, we do have our guest, Kevin Holden, coming on here shortly, but do you have any final thoughts on the 53-man roster, any places that you think they made good decisions keeping players?
I think the receiver position, a lot of guys, a lot of people were talking about maybe Jeff Janis being cut, and Trevor Davis looked really good at times. I think the youth that they kept there is good. I like Aberderis, and I think Devontae Adams has had his share of drops, but I think he's also going to be a pretty good player for the Packers this year.
Yeah, that receiving core, again, appears to have depth that we thought they had last year until it got tested. But now with both Nelson and Montgomery back, as well as Aberderis healthy, and a few new faces in there as well, it's looking pretty deep here. So I'm hoping to see all sorts of havoc unleashed on opposing secondary here. Now, the two that I noticed that I really liked is they kept Joe Callahan around because they knew they weren't going to get him to waivers, and Kentrell Bryce also making the team. Those were two players that really stood out in the preseason, and I'm glad that the Packers were able to find roster room for both of them.
Absolutely, yeah. Bryce looked to be around the ball quite a bit, and Callahan played well enough that they couldn't cut him or put him on the practice squad because they knew he'd be picked up. And with Brett Hundley's ankle, if Aaron goes down, you at least have an insurance policy there with having Joe Callahan. He has really shown a lot of growth from OTAs through preseason in one training camp. So I'm glad that he made the team as well. And I'm a little sad that Peter Mortel didn't make the team. He got cut before Tim Mastay, the day before Tim Mastay. But I'm a little bit sad. He's a local kid, and I spoke to him a couple of times about coming on the show, and I hope he catches on somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to see him get a shot, but even so, from what I did see, it looked like he did enjoy being able to at least live out his dream for as long as he did. He had a Instagram posting that was very thankful for his opportunity. Hopefully see him around, see him get another chance somewhere here, but just even for the short time he got to be a Packer, it was clear that he loved what he was doing.
Absolutely. He's a great kid and showed a lot of character in class when he did get released that, he's undefeated as a Packer. He made a joke on his Facebook page about, I'm undefeated as a Green Bay Packer. So,
and it could be a lot worse, that is for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll go ahead and take our first break then, and go ahead and bring on Kevin Holden after the break. You're listening to the TitleTown Huddle.
Get in the TitleTown Huddle with Joe Pritchard and Aaron Zepnick on thegruelingtruth.net.
Welcome back to the TitleTown Huddle. We have Kevin Holden from CBS 58 here to talk a little bit about the 53-man roster and maybe a little bit about what to expect this next week. Kevin, how you doing?
Man, doing great, Joe. You spend so much time over the summer. You're talking about OTAs and practices and getting glimpses of things. I can't tell you how excited I am to get to September and get to a game that counts. The Packers will have either a one on the win or loss side after this week, and we can start talking about, real things and not just practicing. So very excited to get this thing going.
I'm sure you are. And actually, when I got a hold of you to get this all set up here, you were actually out at Lambeau on Saturday, but you weren't there to watch college football, were you?
That turned out to be one of the funniest days of the year. LSU and Wisconsin were playing at Lambeau last Saturday, and in a normal world, that would have been one of the biggest things to happen in the course of an entire year. And it still was a terrific game and a nice win for Wisconsin. But I can tell you that I was not the only one in the press box not paying attention during the first half of that game, because the Packers' cut deadline happened at 3 o'clock and the game started at 2:30. So all the rumors started flying before kickoff, and by the time the game actually started, I think we were all busier with Packers news than we were with the actual game itself. So by the time that all settled down, it was the second half. We kind of missed a half of football. It was happening in front of us, but we weren't watching. We were doing Packer stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a rather active deadline here. Thompson seemed to hold off until right around the deadline to announce some of the big ones here. Maybe just get your impressions about some of the major moves that they made, including Josh Sitton and Sam Barrington, and how this is all going down.
Yeah, the Sitton news is still, when we first heard about it that day, there was some thoughts of, okay, somebody has planted something crazy. Clearly this is not what's going to happen. But, as time went on and it kind of became obvious that was going to be the case, you start to ask yourself the why of it. And, I know that there has, of course, a lot of speculation will float around in a lot of different circles. And the truth of the matter is Lane Taylor is Josh Sitton's replacement. And I don't think anybody is under the illusion that in a room somewhere a bunch of executives say, well, Lane Taylor's playing just as well as Josh Sitton. Let's let him go. I mean, I don't think that is, at all what's happened in this case. So, I'm not 100% sure of the reasoning, the why of this. But speaking in football terms of it, I can imagine that you're talking about a player at 30, a player who's had some back issues. Certainly he was still in the prime and still has a few years of prime left, but maybe someone that in the course of knowing where your money is going down the road, you decide to push it in different ways. You decide there are guys you can keep and guys you can't. And in Sitton's case, he may have been a guy that they just didn't feel like they could keep around. I mean, I know there's been talk of Sitton being vociferous, a tough guy to control, that kind of thing. I think if you're talking about a great player, someone who is good at his position and is a plus guy at a position, I think the rest of it can be dealt with most of the time. I don't think that's the sort of thing that stands in the way of a great player continuing to play for a team. I think maybe the physical aspect of this plays more into the decision, plus the financials of it. Now, Sam Barrington was a surprise to me too, especially because it's a thin group at linebacker, and maybe the better way to put it is a young group at linebacker. In that case, I feel much more like the coaching staff has the confidence in the guys they have that they felt okay letting Barrington go. And I'm curious to see what Blake Martinez does. Now, the other cuts, a lot of those have been brought back, but the fact that the Packers have to face Sitton now twice a year, including, prime time on a Thursday night at Lambeau, I don't think that's going to be pretty, because I think Sitton still has something left in the tank.
Kevin, this is Aaron Zepnick here. Thanks for coming on and joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, glad to.
I live in Green Bay, and right in the shadows of Lambeau Field, and I had heard some rumors, and again, they're rumors. Being a guy that, has a little insight, I'm wondering if you could clear anything up. I had heard that, Josh Sitton felt a little bit scorned that some other players were signed in the off season and really came into camp with a shoddy attitude and felt kind of slighted that he didn't get, a long-term deal. Is there any truth to that? Is there anything flying around in the media, the guys that you work with, or have you heard anything in regards to the attitude being another factor, and the fact that he didn't get signed to a long-term deal, and that carried into his – I've even heard that it carried into his locker room presence, and it started to become kind of cancerous in the locker room.
Yeah, these were rumors that we'd heard too. I haven't really pushed anything past the rumor phase when it comes to that. I haven't, found anything more substantial than just the rumors, those same rumors that you'd heard. And Josh Sitton, I can tell you, through the years, has been a guy who's never been afraid to speak his mind. See, we like that in the media. He's been a terrific soundbite for us through the years. Sitton is a guy that when he's in his locker and you go to approach him, you're going to get some material that you can use on television. That's not the case for everybody. So, Sitton was a little bit of, I think, a free spirit in that way. Past that, it would be all conjecture on my part, but I think you can begin to see the writing on the wall if you're a 30-year-old lineman and the Packers have a total of 4 of them becoming free agents, 4 offensive linemen that are becoming free agents after this year. I think Sitton's thought may have been, if this hasn't happened before the season, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe this money is being allocated to the other guys that are going to be free agents. That's unfortunate, but I think at the same time we knew that all of them probably could not be re-signed. I think if you look at the numbers that it would have been difficult to bring everybody back along that offensive line. So that part is it's one of those difficult business decisions. The tough part is letting go of Sitton before a season and not after a season. So that may lend a little bit of credence to the thought that there had been some animosity about the contract. But no, past the rumor phase, I don't have any sort of substantiation for that. But you can certainly see where the dots would be connected.
Absolutely, and with the other 3 offensive linemen, meaning J.C. Treader, David Bakhtiari, and T.J. Lang. I mean, there is more youth there. There is some other factors, but wouldn't you think if everything was on the up and up that you'd keep the guy that was the All-Pro that's been started 110 out of 112 games in his career? I mean, I just think that business-wise or for the team in growth, you would want to invest the money into the guy you can count on. Kind of the same thing with Sam Barrington. I think most of it was, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think most of it with Sam was the injuries. They couldn't rely on Sam to be on the field, so these other young guys are getting their opportunities, which is great. But when you're, nearing the downhill slope of Aaron Rodgers' career, potentially, I think the window of opportunity for a Super Bowl is closing, and getting rid of guys that could be starters and help your team, it could come back to haunt us.
Yeah, it's a legitimate thought because every year is going to mean something. I mean, the NFL is in such a way and in such terrific parity that you could have a team that you feel could win the Super Bowl, 5 times, and something could happen to them 5 different times, and they might not win any of the 5. The Packers have been so close so many times since that win in Super Bowl 45 that fans, I think, have a right to want to have the maximum chance to win right now. That's why I think this the release of Sitton has sparked the reaction that it has, because I think people look at Sitton, the fact that there was no dead money on the contract, and the fact that he had done so well over the last 3 years, that this is a guy you want to contribute to the roster. Right, that you want him back in the fold right now. You want him to be part of something right now, and then you could deal with the financials once this season is over. The fact that it was a transaction that happened before the season, a shocker to a lot of people, and I'm with you on that. I mean, I don't think there's anyone out there who thinks that the team got better in this particular situation, but I also think that this preseason period was really full of financial decisions. Barrington was let go, Sitton was let go, Tim Bastay was let go. Veterans who had helped, who had been positives for the team, that were let go. And I think, Ted Thompson got younger, he got cheaper, and that'll help him down the road. But I think fans, have a right to be a little concerned about this year, the one that's in front of us right now, and the fact that Sitton's not there for it.
Right, and Ted Thompson's also not getting any younger at this point either, so while he has put together quite the string of winning seasons here, at some point his plan is going to come to an end here as well, so you almost wonder if there will be a point where he'll go all in and say, this is the year, let's see what we have out of all this here, but then on the other hand, you almost think it's Thompson, he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, and at one point he's going to step away and hand it off and hope that it keeps staying the same way. But we spent quite a bit of time now on the off season so far. Let's talk about the season in front of us here. Coming up week 1 at Jacksonville. It's a team that's rather young. What do you expect to see out of Jacksonville this week?
Well, for one, I think you've got to stop the combination of Mark Brunell to Jimmy Smith. I think those two guys are just. Oh wait. That's right. That's not the 1999 Jaguars. What am I thinking here? It's funny because that's the last Jaguars team that's felt relevant in my mind. Fred Taylor or Mark Brunell, but they are approaching relevance. The days of mocking the Jaguars are soon to come to a close, and it starts with Blake Bortles, who is maturing in his NFL career, his young career, came out of Central Florida and was at least a legitimate player for the team right off the bat. But I think is headed forward. They've got a strong backfield. I know Chris Ivory was dealing with an injury this week that kept him limited in Wednesday's practice, but they've got to watch for him. There is a thought that Jacksonville will be able to move the ball in a way that they probably haven't in a while. Great receivers on that team. And the Packers are going to have their hands full. If this were 3 or 4 years ago, you feel like this is an automatic. It would have felt like, a Wisconsin versus Akron kind of thing. Just, chalk it up, win by a few touchdowns and move on. But this Jaguars team is going to be tough. I don't know defensively what they'll be able to do against Rodgers and a healthy Packers offense, but I feel like the Jaguars will at least be able to match them to some extent on offense.
Yeah, they seem to be rather young on defense. I believe they spent something close to their first 5 picks on defense, and they're finally getting to see their number 1 pick from last year come back as well from an injury. So they're going to be starting quite a few very young players. I could see Rodgers having a field day off of that. But then again, the Packers have not seen these Jaguars. It almost feels like they're a fresh slate, and it's going to be. I could see Jacksonville jumping out early and surprising a lot of people, and having everybody on TV at halftime going, "Hey, look at what Jacksonville's doing," and I'm hoping that's not the case, but I could see Jacksonville jumping out to an early lead here before the Packers catch up with them here. But I'm not too worried about Rodgers against that Jacksonville defense, but we shall see. I also did do a little bit of historical writing about the Jaguars, and I felt the same exact way. I can't really remember a memorable game between these two teams.
No, and it's funny. Basically, the rotation of the NFL means they meet every 4 years, and so I go back in my mind, right? What was 2012? I don't remember that matchup at all in 2012. It's completely gone from my memory. So this may turn out to have a little more of a memorable status to it, because it's week 1 and there are always questions that get answered in those first 4 quarters of football on the field. The number one for me still is we remember how the Packers offense bogged down at times, especially late last year, and what the friction was that was caused by that. They got things figured out a little more in the playoffs last year. I think it would be good for the Packers if Jordy Nelson slots right in as the old Jordy or close to it, and he allows the rest of the offense to sort of breathe and round out the way it used to. If that happens, I feel great about this. I don't know if it's necessarily the case. The loss of Sitton for the first game might be, a bit of an issue too. I still think they'll be really good on offense, but will they be a juggernaut in that first game? They may not necessarily be.
I think this first week is going to be a teller on how our season's going to go. I think the biggest matchups are Jacksonville's D-line versus our O-line, and then our receivers against Jacksonville's corners. Devon House and Jalen Ramsey against Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. And I think the X factor here, and everybody's kind of written him off, I kind of feel like Davante Adams has gotten a bad rap. And, yeah, he had some drops last year. It's a lot of pressure jumping from the number 3 receiver to the number 1. And I think Davante Adams is going to be the X factor. And I've actually told people that I'm, in my circle of friends, I think Davante Adams could end up being the Packers' leading receiver this year. And
what he is, what potentially could be is another James Jones. And that what Rodgers has always done well is, you have whoever your number 1 and number 2 receivers are, and they do well. They put up their numbers, and then there's that other guy. Last year it was James Jones. That's happened a couple of times where you're paying attention to the 1 and 2 guys, and that third receiver becomes the guy who beats you. And Davante Adams has been around long enough that he can be that guy. The drops have been a question mark for him. He dropped one near the end zone. I think that was in KC. It might have been San Francisco, but in the preseason. But if he's there, if Davante doesn't have the drops, there's the guy that reaps the benefit. Your third defensive back going against Davante Adams, he's going to have some juicy matchups.
And that's what I think Rodgers likes to go to. And I think, having Jared Cook to stretch the middle of the field, you really can't roll coverage to anybody because they have 3 guys that can hurt you at the receiver spot. You have Eddie Lacy and James Starks out of the backfield, and you also have Jared Cook. And I think Adams is going to be the X factor. If he has a really good season and we can protect Rodgers and keep him upright, I think our offense could be the top offense in the league. I just don't see how teams can game plan to stop everything.
Yeah, Jared Cook. If Jared Cook comes as advertised, if he turns out to be the guy that the Packers have not had since Jermichael Finley, that might be the biggest benefit of all. Because if you lose stuff downfield, if they can't hook up with Jordy Nelson way downfield, and you can get a Jared Cook to help you extend drives, pick up first downs, and of course Lacy is the other factor. How healthy will he be? How trim will he be when the season starts? But yeah, Jared Cook adds an element to this offense that's going to be kind of exciting. Guys, the truth is, I don't know how he's not going higher in fantasy drafts. I know this is not a fantasy podcast, but how is it that he is not, at least a mid-range option at tight end? He's an afterthought, and he's going to catch a lot of balls this year.
Well, around here he's going pretty early in some of the drafts I've done. I've done 3 in 6th round or so. He's been getting drafted, but so. As far as a score prediction, do you want to say a score prediction for Sunday?
Sure, there's nothing wrong with throwing something out there, see if it sticks, right? I think Rodgers will come in and lead what he's got into Jacksonville, and I think he'll take advantage of the weaknesses in that secondary. There's still youth there to be exploited, and Rodgers is at that point in his career where he's good enough to take a weakness and just blow that wide open. So I think that the points will be there for the Packers. The question is, what will the Jaguars respond with? The Packers putting up 28, I think, is a pretty easy number for me, and I could see the Jaguars maybe responding with 17, but I don't think much more. So 28-17, Packers go to 1-0, and everybody breathes easy, 1-0.
All right, well, what I think, I actually think the Packers are going to put up quite a few points here. I think Jacksonville's going to keep up for a while. I've got this one 38-28 Green Bay.
Okay, and I'm going 45-24. I think they're going to blow the roof off of the place and score a lot of points. I think they may get one from Ty Montgomery in a return, and I think Blake Bortles is a good quarterback, but I think he might give us one as well. So I say 45-24.
Points scored all over the board. Yeah, it wouldn't be a shock. But the one thing's for sure, when we see that first pass, when we see that first drive, it'll be nice to settle in, won't it? We'll know we'll have that every Sunday till February.
Oh,
absolutely.
I can't wait for that first back shoulder throw to Jordy. That'll tell me the season's ready.
We've been missing that for sure.
That is for sure. Well, I do want to thank you again, Kevin, for coming on here. I know you've got a busy night ahead of you here, but appreciate you taking the time here, and hopefully we can touch base throughout the season.
Absolutely. Let me know. I'm here, and I'd love to talk football anytime, so it sounds good. Thanks for having me on, and fingers crossed that we've got good things to talk about all year.
Get in the TitleTown Huddle with Joe Pritchard and Aaron Zepnick on thegruelingtruth.net.
All right, and we just spoke to Kevin Holden here from CBS 58 here. Aaron, do you have any further thoughts on the Jacksonville game?
Just, I think the big thing is the Dom Capers defense has to bend but not break. They have to make some plays when given the opportunities. Stop the run first. I know they have a big passing attack with Julius Thomas at tight end, Allen Robinson and Allen Hearns. You know, they're going to get their numbers. They're going to get their stats. Keeping them out of the end zone is going to be a tall task. Eliminate the big plays down the field in the passing game and stop the run, and I think they win big.
All right, and it's going to be very, very important for them to get that first W here. They started off a few of the past couple seasons with challenging games where they started off 0-1 after a hard-fought first week loss here. It'd be nice to get on the board here, especially with Minnesota and Detroit coming up here. Let's take just a moment and talk about Minnesota's changes here. Obviously, last week they lost Teddy Bridgewater, and this week they went ahead and made a trade, sending a first-round and a potential fourth-round pick away to Philadelphia for Sam Bradford. Now, do you think that helps them, or maybe do you think that hurts them?
I think it all depends. I think they're going with the all-in now model, like some Packer fans probably wish Ted Thompson would do, or you could argue that he doesn't do enough of. But I think the trade says we don't care about a first and a potential fourth-round pick because we're going after a Super Bowl this year. They have a Hall of Fame running back. They have a really stingy defense. They don't need Sam Bradford to win them the division or win them the games. Just don't lose the games. I look back to the Vikings of the Christian Ponder days and, you know, some of the other quarterbacks they've had, and as long as Bradford doesn't lose the game, they're going to be in a lot of games because of their defense and special teams. So
I could see though where Bradford has been in the position to put his team in a losing position, just based off his play here. Whereas the Vikings also have Sean Hill as a backup that seems to play more along the lines of what you would expect from a caretaker quarterback. I almost wonder if they spent money or sent draft picks and got a little bit worse. I mean, I don't think you're going to say that Sean Hill has the same physical talent as Sam Bradford does, but I've never seen Sam Bradford take a team and make it his own, and keep them mistake-free either.
This is true, and it's a gamble. You know, anytime you trade a first and another mid-round pick, it's a gamble. You're gambling on what's going to happen. Is Sam Bradford going to be able to stay healthy? That's another thing that's plagued him throughout his career. And he clearly didn't fit into Doug Peterson's plans in Philadelphia. And, you know, I like the move for Philadelphia because you got a young quarterback in Carson Wentz. Now you have a first and a potentially a fourth-round pick to add to what you have for next year. Chip Kelly really put Philadelphia's roster in shambles. And Doug Peterson and their staff there are doing the right things here. Rebuild quickly. Dump the dead weight, so to speak, in Sam Bradford. If he's not your quarterback of the future, you drafted Carson Wentz. Build around him, and I think what they're doing is very, very brilliant. As far as Minnesota goes, I don't think that Sam Bradford will get many chances to lose them the game because I think they're going to run the ball that much. And, you know, you have some good receivers there. You got Stephon Diggs, you got a young Laquan Treadwell, and you got Cordarrelle Patterson. And I think that if he just manages the game, if they can make him a game manager, I think they'll be all right.
Well, the one thing we do know about Sam Bradford is he is one of the few winners in the business of pro football. He was the last guy to get the huge rookie signing bonuses before the new CBA kicked in. And wherever he's gone, he seems like he ends up with another bonus here and another bunch of guaranteed money here. So seems like a bit of a desperation move on Minnesota's part here, but I'm hoping, honestly, as a Packer fan, it doesn't affect our season too much here, but definitely something to keep an eye on, especially with the Vikings coming up so soon here as well, how fast Bradford can get acclimated and start running that offense. But as far as that goes, do you have any final thoughts this week?
Yeah, and I did want to just add that I read a thing on online today that Sam Bradford and Sean Hill were actually splitting first-team reps. So until he picks up the offense, who knows who's even going to start there. So I think that could be also a ploy, too, to make the Packers game plan for both. And, you know, there's not a whole lot of recent film on either one of them other than Bradford and Philadelphia last year, which I don't know that you can learn anything from that because, you know, the Eagles' offense was a lot different last year than what it'll be this year.
Well, that is for sure, too. And even back in his Rams days, you can get an idea of his physical abilities, I suppose. But trying to put that together with what the Vikings run on offense is going to be an interesting task, no doubt.
Absolutely.
All right. So since I jumped the gun earlier, let's go back to this. Any final thoughts for this week?
No, I just think that, you know, we got to keep Rodgers upright and, you know, play good, sound defense in the red zone. And, you know, Jacksonville's going to move the ball. They're going to get their numbers. They're going to, you know, they're a stat-driven team. I think their fantasy numbers last year were off the chain. And if they can keep them out of the end zone, limit them to field goals, I think they win this game by a landslide. If not, I think it could go down to the wire. But as I predicted, 45-24 Packers.
All right, and I've got 38-28 here. Let's hope that our prognostication skills are as good as Aaron Rodgers' skills at throwing the football. We will let you go here for tonight or whenever you're listening to this, obviously. This is the TitleTown Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak.
Thank you for listening to the TitleTown Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net.